I broke free on a Saturday morning. I put my pedal to the floor, headed north up Mills Avenue, and listened to the engine roar. The very first episode that I did for this podcast is arguably was focused around the Mountain Goats' most famous song, which is No Children. TikTok launched that song into popularity, but even though it always held sort of a high ranking in the Mountain Goats catalog in terms of listenership, it did not always hold that spot. That spot for a long time was occupied by this song, which is This Year. This Year is absolutely an anthem about survival at all costs. It's an anthem about teenage rebellion, and it really rings true for a lot of people. I know it rings true for me because at various points in time, you're struck by the chorus. I'm going to make it through this year if it kills me. And even though there's an obvious contradiction in that line, it still is something that can be shouted. It's something that can be sung from the heart. It's very often a staple in their encore sets when you see the Mountain Goats live. This is a great song to sing with a whole bunch of people. And it tells the story of the protagonist's, very likely a stand-in for John himself, the protagonist's escape on a day to essentially go and get drunk at an arcade and hang out with a girl named Kathy. That's the whole thing. That's all the person who is heading up the song is doing. But the way that it's sung, the feelings that are evoked are so raw and so real. It reminds you what it's like to be that old, even if your life was not like the life that was led by the protagonist. The song itself comes from The Sunset Tree, which is an entire album that deals with John Darnielle's relationship with his stepfather. It was not a kind relationship. It was not a healthy relationship. It was very abusive. And there are a lot of songs on The Sunset Tree that deal with that dynamic in much more direct terms. Here in This Year, we are given a chance to celebrate the chaotic, boisterous, not devil may care is not quite the right phrase, but there's a freedom alongside a knowledge that these actions are going to have consequences. It's sort of known even at the end of the song that as he's heading home, he knows that he's heading into trouble. He knows that he's going to be in a very uncomfortable position when this is all over. But right now, in this moment, he is free and he's playing video games and he's drunk and he's hanging out with a girl. And, those are joyful things, even if what's to follow ends up not being terribly joyful. So for the deck that evokes this song, I thought for a while about how to try and capture this one. There are some songs in the Mountain Goats catalog that, you can have decks that are sort of inspired by a portion of the song, maybe the title. We saw that with the Precon that I upgraded in the last episode. But much like No Children, This Year is a very important song to a lot of people. And I really wanted to make sure that when you played this deck, it really captured the self-destructive but also joyous nature that This Year encompasses. So for that reason, the commander that I have chosen for this deck is Squee. Now, in Magic lore, you probably know Squee. In the recent Dominaria United storyline, he featured pretty prominently. He is one of the slightly more than a handful of immortal characters in the Magic universe. But his immortality is a very goblin-like immortality in that he would die and be resurrected, and die and be resurrected. And in the fiction that accompanied the release of Dominaria United, it was actually shown that because of his very goblin-y nature, Squee, if he didn't feel like going down a set of stairs, would jump out of a window and splat on the ground and then wait for himself to be reborn, and then stand up and go on with his day. So that felt like a very sort of teenage resilience is kind of a fraught term. Like, I don't want to imply that teenagers can bounce back from the traumas that they've endured, because there are some who definitely do not. But at the same time, there is a resiliency, at least in spirit and in action. There's a desire for resiliency, I guess I should say. Like, we want to believe that we can bounce back from everything, and that character is more prevalent when you're a teenager. At least it was for me. I believed for a long time that I could just bounce back from anything. It didn't matter how much it had hurt. It didn't matter what the circumstances were. I was always going to be okay. And wow, is that really not a healthy way to live your life? Unless, like Squee, you happen to be a goblin that can continually resurrect yourself. So with that in mind, let's transition over and we are going to take a look at the deck itself. So here, as I've done before, I've broken the deck down into its various component pieces, and I've categorized them on the Moxfield page, which you can see in the show notes. So the categories that I have chosen for this deck are going to make it through this year, which those are Squee and his various incarnations, because I wanted to make sure that I included all of them. So as the commander, I have chosen Squee, Dubious Monarch, that's the newest one. 2/2 with haste. Whenever Squee, Dubious Monarch attacks, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking, and you may cast Squee, Dubious Monarch from your graveyard by paying 3 and a red and exiling 4 other cards from your graveyard rather than paying its mana cost. So effectively he has escape, he's just not keyworded with that. And then to represent the other brands of him, I have Squee, the Immortal, which can simply be cast from your graveyard or exile, and Squee, Goblin Nabob. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you can return Squee, Goblin Nabob from your graveyard to your hand. So we've got 3 different variations on a theme here, because these are the ones who are always going to make it through this year. It very likely will kill them. Then the other categories, I again struggled for a moment to figure out how to label these categories, and then I realized that there are lines from the song that are particularly evocative, and they really do a good job of highlighting what these various portions of the deck do. So the first category is Hurt My Knuckles Punching the Machine, right? This is the teenage rebellion. This is the stuff that hurts you even though, this is the stuff that is going to hurt you, and you do it even though you know it's going to hurt you. So there's a lot of cards in this category. We'll go through a few. We have Scotch-Rich on My Tongue. These are the things that are seemingly consequence-free in the deck. We have 6 cylinders underneath the hood. That it represents acceleration and getting moving forward with things. And then we have Twin High-Maintenance Machines, which is sort of the dynamic between Kathy and the protagonist of the song. And there's also kind of a chaos present in that. So as I said, we've got a lot of things going on with this deck, and the rules that I sort of tried to abide by when I was constructing this deck were that if there were going to be creatures, by and large, they needed to be creatures that either did some of that resilience thing. So we've got things like Brash Taunter and Stuffy Doll. So when they get hurt, they don't actually get hurt. They redirect the damage to something else, which is like a very teenage way of lashing out, which I kind of liked. And then other effects are symmetrical effects. So if they're going to hurt someone else, they're also going to hurt you. So we've got a lot of different stuff in this category, like I said. So symmetrical effect here is an oldie but a goodie. This is Power Surge. At the beginning of a player's turn, before the untap phase, the player must take a counter for each of his or her lands that is not tapped. During the player's upkeep, Power Surge does 1 damage to that player for each counter, then the counters are discarded. So basically, you don't even need counters to play it. I think the Oracle text has this updated such that if you have untapped lands at the start of your upkeep, you take a damage for each of the untapped lands. We have a favorite Heartless Hitotsugu, tap it and it deals damage equal to each player. That's equal to half the player's life total rounded down. Ravenous Giant does damage to you on the beginning of your upkeep. Curse of Opulence is in here, if we can get this refocused. There we go, Curse of Opulence. The personal rule for this deck is that if you cast Curse of Opulence, you have to cast it on yourself. You get a gold every time that you are attacked, but so does the person who's attacking you. Again, just in keeping with the theme. Kukus. Kukus is a 3/5. If you don't control Keeper of Kukus, it deals 3 damage to you, and it attacks each turn of this turn of Fable. Keeper of Kukus isn't in this deck. Kazul's Fury requires some sacrifice. Aki Lava Runner, I think I have this. This is in the wrong category. That should be in the Engines Crashing category. That's fine. Goblin Psychopath, when it attacks or blocks, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, the next time it deals combat damage, it does it to you instead. Brothers of Fire, you can see there's all kinds of stuff that is really wild stuff that you would never normally play, right? Acidic Soil deals 1 damage to each player for each land he or she controls. Coal Hauler Swine, when it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to each player. That includes you. Primordial Ooze, Sarkhan's Rage, just so many effects that really do a good job of emulating the recklessness that is present in this song. Fun fact, there are 3 different cards in this deck that mimic this effect. So there's Orcish Cannoneers, there is another one, an Orcish something or other, Orcish Artillery, right? Does the exact same thing. Tap, deals 2 damage to target creature, player, and 3 to you. And then there's a sorcery that does the exact same thing. Earthquake, Fling requires sacrifice, and Rampaging Ferocidons. Again, it's a symmetrical effect. So all of those cards, that's the meat of the deck, right? That's a pretty sizable pile. And that entire set, again, just embodies the recklessness, the carelessness. Then we have Scotch Rich on My Tongue. And these are basically pure value cards, because I didn't want the deck to just be those symmetrical effects, because otherwise, 1, you're going to die quickly, and 2, it's not going to be that much fun to play. So it is kind of a goblin-themed deck. So Goblin Morningstar gives you an equipment and a goblin. Geist Flame Reservoir. When you cast instant or sorceries spells, you put charge counters on it. You can remove charge counters to deal damage, and you can also exile the top card of your library. Relentless Assault gives you another combat phase, which is awesome. Mizzix's Mastery lets you recast the instants and sorceries in your graveyard. Disrupt Quorum. Shiny Impetus. Fable of the Mirror Breaker, because why not copy the creatures that are going to deal you damage to? Cursed Mirror for some copying and some ramp, and Double Cast, so you can get more out of those instants and sorceries even if they are hurting you. Then the next category is 6 cylinders underneath the hood. This is sort of acceleration, right? The Aki Lava Runner that I mentioned before, here it is. It's just a 1/1 with haste for 4, not that great, but when it deals damage, you flip it. It has pro red, and if a red source would deal damage to a player, it deals that much damage plus 1 to that player instead. So it accelerates all the damage on the table. Hoarding Ogre. For treasure generation, Mechanized Warfare does the same thing as the Tok Tok Volcanoborn when that's flipped. Mana Flare for extra mana for everybody. Humble Defector, you get some cards, but you have to give them to somebody else. Noise Marine from the new Warhammer set, so you can get some Cascade action. Glorious End the turn. At the beginning of your next end step, you lose the game. So if you've got a good way to swing, you can take it out. But if not, you're going to make it through this year, and it is going to kill you. Total War, so if you do not attack with all your creatures, they get destroyed. Hazaret's Monument is in there as well, and then Avatar of Slaughter. All creatures have double strike and attack each combat available. So it just really pushes everybody forward, including yourself. And then the last category is the Twin High Maintenance Machines. These are sort of the die-rolling chaos cards. There's a little bit of fuzziness on some of these categories, but because there are some dice present, we do have Barbarian class. We've got Berserker's Frenzy, Wand of Wonder, so you can get some utility spells off of your opponents. Krark the Thumbless, so you have a chance to double your instance of sorceries. Tybalt's Trickery for a counter. Mana Clash, you and target opponent each flip a coin. Mana Clash deals 1 damage to each player whose coin comes up tails. Repeat this process until both coins have come up heads on the same flip. Delina Wild Mage, copy your creatures and go with them. Magus the Wheel, get yourself some more cards. Veritas Fireball, and of course, Chaos Warp. So overall, this entire picture, I've actually gotten a chance to playtest this deck because of the hiatus, because I had some extra time. I was able to give some time to this deck in a way that I hadn't with some of the others. And I can tell you, it definitely feels the right way when you're playing it. It's also a lot of fun to play. I had a really good time, even with the symmetrical effects. Because when you have symmetrical effects in a game like Commander, when you have goat effects, when you have like the Avatar of Slaughter where everyone has to attack, it really puts the pressure on the entire table and it really changes the entire nature of the game. And this song kind of is emblematic of that, right? The events of that day in the song are chaotic and they sort of roll through things, and it would be my guess, at least I feel this way, that anyone who is sort of present for those events, if not forever changed by them, even if in a minor way, they're going to remember them. And that is what I want this deck to be, is nothing else if not memorable. So that is the setup for this deck. This is a very important song to me, as it is to a lot of other people, and I'm really proud of the setup that I was able to create for it. So that is the triumphant return of the Mountain Goats meets Magic the Gathering after our long baby-related hiatus. I do want to let you know that the family and I are all doing very well. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but I am a full-time stay-at-home dad, and I now have 2 kids that I'll be taking care of. So we're one of those 2 under 2 families, but both the kids are an absolute delight, and even though, yes, it is trying and it is very difficult at times, we're doing very, very well. We've got a lot of support and things are going great. So it is my hope that these episodes will be able to continue weekly from here on out, because I will do my best to carve out the time to make these decks and show them off to you. So I've got the next few decks in sequence already built. I've had a chance to play some of them, again, because I had some time where I wasn't on a schedule for productions like this. And again, I really like what they've done and how they evoke the songs that I've chosen for them. So if you like this stuff, if you like what I do here, then I will encourage you to please go to patreon.com/theothertracy. You can support me and this project and everything else that I do for any amount of money a month, literally. As little as $1, as much as you want. You get the same rewards the whole time. You get these episodes early, you get to join the Discord, all that good stuff. So I would really appreciate it. As well, if you listen to the audio version of this and you have not yet gone to leave a rating or a review, please take a few moments and do that, because it helps more people find the show. As well, if you want to see me play these, I will not be playing this deck the day this episode comes out, because it's not quite high powered enough for the pod that I've got. But I have a show called Holding Priority that I run over on the One Shot Podcast Network's Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/OneShotRPG. And every Monday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I play Commander. So I run a lot of the Mountain Goats decks there. If the power level is right for the group that I have, I will run the deck that I did the episode for. So you'll actually get to see me put my money where my mouth is and see these decks in action. So overall, thank you again for watching. Thank you for listening. I really, really greatly appreciate it. And I hope this episode finds you well. Thanks. Bye.